Hello and welcome to Bloke on the Range, and I've got a bit of an interesting old Enfield here, so some classic Bloke on the Range content for once. I have a charger loading Lee Enfield Mk.1 Star, which I have had for a while and not quite got around to filming until now. So basically, bit of background on this. So the British Army went into the Boer War with marks of long Lee Enfield and long Lee Metford rifles. There were various lessons learned, one of which was related to the sighting of the Lee Enfields with the 5-groove conventional rifled barrels. The rifles shot substantially on average to the left. The whole old school long rifle and carbine paradigm went out of the window, and we ended up with first the SMLE Mk.1 and then later the SMLE Mk.3 in 1907. The big improvement being charger loading. The Mk.1s and the Mk.2 converted had a sliding charger guide that didn't work very well. The Mk.3 has the big one we all know and love. And the other improvement was the sighting. What they were doing back in the day was they were batch sighting the rifles, like they used to do with sort of muzzle loaders, and they were sort of fit with, the front sight was sort of set by design, but that doesn't take into account the fact that the rifles are inherently capable of very, very good grouping, contrary to popular belief, and that showed up errors which, with the Martini Henry, which is a lot less accurate, let alone the Snyder and the earlier muzzle loaders, it showed up quite substantially, and they ended up fitting the front sight on the Enfield barreled rifles. There were various batches they did at various distances, but 27,000th of an inch to the left seems to be the big one there. So what came out of that was that they wanted individually sightable rifles, which they did by having a front sight dovetailed into a block, and then various heights of these can be used to zero elevation, and then they can be set further to the left or the right as required due to the stocking up and the bearing of the locking surfaces, because these are asymmetric lockers. So the main army goes over to SMLE Mk.1 and then Mk.3, and then in parallel they decide that what are they going to do with the long rifles. Some of them got converted to SMLE Mk.2s, Mk.4s. I mean, a Mk.2 is an earlier pattern converted to SMLE configuration. There's actually various different marks in various ways, particularly the Navy did all sorts of funny business with different sights and stuff. And a Mk.4 converted is earlier patterns converted to Mk.3. However, that's expensive to do the whole thing, particularly with the nose cap, completely different stocking up, etc. Something cheaper for the Yeomanry, the original SAS, as in Saturday Afternoon Soldiers. In 1908, the Yeomanry were renamed the Territorials, so the forerunners of the modern Territorial Army. What they got to upgrade the earlier patterns of rifles was these things. This is a charger loading Lee Enfield Mk.1 Star. There are also charger loading Lee Metfords, which are converted from Lee Mk.2 Mk.2s with the double stack magazine. And just to add some confusion into the mix, the charger loading Lee Metfords can be found with both Metford and Enfield rifling, because when a Metford rifle barrel wore out, it would be replaced with an Enfield rifled one. And the issue isn't that the Metford barrels didn't work with cordite, they just didn't get the barrel life they wanted. And off the top of my head, they were getting something like 6,000 rounds of cordite out of a Metford barrel, but they wanted 10,000, and the conventional profiled Enfield barrel achieved that. So what we have is a fairly minimalist upgrade, and I think I will zoom it in and show you its features. So starting at the back here, there's no stock marking disc. This rifle is marked to the 7th Notts and Derbies, aka the Robin Hood Battalion of the Sherwood Foresters. So this actually has a very interesting provenance. So this particular one started life in 1897 as a London Small Arms Co. Magazine Lee Enfield Mk.1. The actions are basically the same as the Magazine Lee Metford Mk.2s. It has a double stack magazine. This one, when we're talking about the sights, we'll talk about this more. This one is not upgraded for the pointy Spitzer Mk.VII ammunition, so it's got the feed lips for the Mk.VI round nose, and these were apparently replaced to work properly with charger loading, but they go in the same way as the entire Lee Enfield series. Originally, the rifle would have had a dust cover. The application of a charger bridge over the top prevents that, but you still see a little artifact there, that little notch to interact with the dust cover. And there's a safety catch that can be applied in the fired off position and can also be applied in the cocked position. And there's a little cam here that's actuated by this flippy lever that cooperates with these notches in a tubular extension of the bolt body. And what's kind of interesting is that the position of the bolt handle is different from the later Marks. It's very difficult to get it up under this camera, but it's a bit more sticky out because they were doing a lot more drill manipulating the rifle at the hip at the time. Because, well, before charger loading was introduced, there was all these commands on loading, charging the magazine and loading the rifle, single shot and a magazine fire, and British muzzle loaders is your resource for that. Of course, we have the magazine cutoff that by the time of the conversion was no longer to be used to enable the rifle to be used as a single loader, but was used in magazine management. So it enabled you to charge the magazine, cut it off, cock the rifle, fire it off, and then you've got a safe rifle. You have a rifle with nothing in the chamber but a full magazine, and then if required you can pop that out, work the bolt, and you've got the full magazine. On the left side we have the dial sight still. It is not called a volley sight, that's an annoying collector term. It is a dial sight, and this one is graduated for Mk.VI ammunition and has ranges from 1600 all the way to 2800 yards. And then the conversion markings are on the left side of the butt socket. This is converted by LSA in 1908 to a charger loading Lee Enfield Mk.1 star. Charger loading Lee Enfield Mk.1 was for the Navy, didn't have some of the other more interesting adaptations, and wasn't, it's like question, it was a sort of semi-official thing, wasn't introduced properly into the list of changes, so it's a bit of an oddity. Now these conversions were done in 1908, 1909, 1910 and 1913 by Enfield, BSA, LSA and Vickers. So this one began life as an LSA and was converted as an LSA. Little point here, this one has a wobbly butt. On Lee Enfields before the number 4 and the number 5, do not just go in and start screwing with the stock bolt, because it has a square cross-section end that goes in a keeper plate in the back of the stock, and you can crack the stock. So to manipulate the stock bolt on these, if you need to do anything on the butt, you have to take all the furniture off. Late SMLEs have the same system as the number 4, where you can do that, but if in doubt, I mean late SMLEs being 1930s, I don't know what the exact cutoff date is, so play it safe with an SMLE and take all the wood off. Number 4 and number 5, you can screw with it to your heart's content. So for the rear sight, they retained the original sight bed, and then they put a new lockable windage adjustable slide on it, which is a bit stiff, this one. And then with the leaf down, we've got ranges 200, 300, 400, 500. And then with the leaf up, we've got ranges from 500 up to 1800. If it's converted for Mk.VII, if it's resighted for Mk.VII ammunition, it will be sighted to 1900. So the sights are, as you can see, higher, which is a function of the adjustable front sight, which we'll get to in a minute. But there's a datum line for windage 0, and I'm not sure if you can see it, but there is a scale on the left here with intervals of 6 moa, so 6 inches per 100 yards, and it is click adjustable. They're fairly coarse clicks. This is all lessons learned from the Boer War, where engagements were at very, very long range, and it's very useful to be able to adjust for wind. This can be locked off to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. That isn't on the naval Mk.1. And frankly, this sort of adjustment is a nice to have, but with experience you see it deleted from the SMLE Mk.3 star as unnecessary, but it's something that well-trained soldiers could get a benefit from. Moving along, the barrel is really quite heavy on these, and what's surprising, I weighed them both earlier, and it's basically the same weight as an SMLE Mk.3, but the weight's in the barrel, whereas in the SMLE Mk.3 it's in the nose cap and the woodwork. And then we get down to the end, we have a sword bar for a 1888 12-inch bayonet, and because this started life as a Mk.1, it's hanging off the end of the table, it has the channel and the hole in the bayonet bar for the clearing rod that was deleted in 1899. So if we come up the front here, we have a protected front sight, and what they did was they took the original sight block, and I'm not sure if you can see it, but this is set offset slightly to the left, so this is going to be 27 thou that way of centre because of the asymmetric jump with the Enfield pattern rifling. And then there's a series of front sight elements that are square post, SMLE Mk.3 type square post, rather than the barleycorn that was used, the sort of pointy barleycorn that was used up to the SMLE Mk.1 and on the unconverted long knees. And as usual with Enfields, it's at the height of the base that varies, and it's marked on it. This one is 0.963 of an inch and has an E after it because it is for the Enfield offset sight block. The ones for the Charger-loading Lee Metfords have an M after it, and the sight protector, again, because it has to take into account that the offset on the front sight block, they have different sight protectors. And in Skeleton's The Lee Enfield Story, there is a whole series of, there's a whole list of the parts that are in common or not between the various marks. So if you really like this kind of autism, please feel free to go through the list and discover that the extractors are common and the handguards are common. So I think it's also a bit interesting to look at the different types of magazine. So this is a Mk.3 magazine follower for my SMLE. So this is set up for Mk.VII ammunition, and then this one is only set up for Mk.VI, and apparently they replaced the magazines on the ones that they resighted for Mk.VII ammunition. But it's a beautiful bit of engineering, and with this sort of pinned on movable magazine lip that you move forward to get the follower out. But we'll see how that, if that feeds with modern ammunition. If not, we can always just slap an SMLE magazine in it and have done with it. So what happened to these rifles? Well, early war, they went to war with the Yeomanry. When the Yeomanry was called up and went to France and Flanders, they took their existing rifles with them, and as they were used up, they were replaced with newer SMLE production. And yes, we had two different types of ammunition in theatre. We had Mk.VI and Mk.VII. Must have been a bit of a nightmare getting it mixed up, because if your magazine doesn't run with Mk.VII, you've got a single loader and you're massively undersighted. The Mk.VII front sights are lower as well to compensate the ballistics. The chances of being issued the wrong ammunition must have been quite significant. I mean, if you put Mk.VI in this, it'll feed and fire, but it will shoot very short, as in very low, because it's only doing about 2,000 feet per second, 215 grain round nose at about 2,000 feet per second, as opposed to 174 grain Spitzer at 2,440. And yeah, progressively replaced, relegated to training. This one is in excellent condition, does not appear to have been refinished. So I suspect that this did not go to France or Flanders with the 7th Notts and Derbies when they fought in World War One, and I'm very happy with this. I'm going to fix this butt. It might just need tightening. It might need a bit of linseed oil to swell up, or it might need packing with paper. But at some point, I will take the wood off, all the wood off, and find out what's going on with that butt there. I think these are a very interesting little part, sort of more obscure part of the Lee Enfield story, and we tend to think of sort of the Boer War era Longleys and then the SMLE Mk.3, Mk.3 star, number 4, number 5. But these are cool nonetheless. I need to get this out to the range sometime when I've stopped its wobbly butt, and yeah, have some fun with it, see how it does. And it has a modern proof. It came out of the UK. So there's a modern Birmingham commercial CIP proof there to a service pressure of 18.5 tons. And you've got to remember that the black powder ammunition that was a stopgap for the first couple of years of 303 production actually had a higher chamber pressure because it was compressed black powder than the Mk.1 cordite that replaced it. So there's no issue with shooting modern ammunition in these. They didn't change the steels. The steels were capable of a 20-odd ton measured chamber pressure. The modern ammunition is below that. Mk.VII is below that. They shot Mk.VII in them in practice. They just recited them if they were intended for it. Didn't change anything else. Didn't reheat treat. There's literally, this is just Fuddism that there's any safety issue with them. So there you go.
There now follows a brief public service announcement. If you're watching this video on YouTube, wouldn't it be great if there was somewhere on the internet regrouping the best gun nerd content in one place, free of demonetizations and instabans, and enabling you to watch it either on desktop or on most major platforms including Apple, Android, Roku and Amazon Fire? Well, now there is. Go to weaponsandwar.tv and sign up for $9.99 a month or $99 a year to enjoy and support the work of all these great channels in one convenient package with cross-channel collections, feature weeks and other cool features you won't find elsewhere, and better video quality. There may even be a discount code for the monthly subscription active right now. Check the main page of weaponsandwar.tv to find out. If that's not for you, the traditional options of Patreon and Player are of course still open, links in the description, and we're always grateful for a like, a subscribe and a salty comment to feed the algorithm. Many thanks for your support in whatever form it may be. Now, back at the plot.
So I hope that was at least vaguely interesting. If you survived so far with this nerdery, well done. Thank you so much for watching. If you like supporting this kind of work, please consider having a look and chucking us a little tip on Patreon or Player. All help gratefully received. Thank you so much, and see you again sometime. Bye.